Welcome back to the Mission43 Podcast. I'm your host, Dan McGurkin, Director of Mission43, and today I am joined by Hillary Colton of the Cabin Literary Center here in Boise, and we're going to be talking about some really exciting stuff that we have coming up related to writing, but also, the value of writing as a tool for growth and expression, especially in life after the military or in a post-traumatic scenario. So I think it's super powerful. My own experience and journey with writing has taken me all over the place, and I couldn't be more excited to get to talk to somebody who actually knows what the heck they're doing, which is Hillary. So I think what I'll do is just ask if you can start by letting us know your background, your journey with writing, how you ended up here in the studio doing this with us and how that works out.
I've always been a writer. So even when I was a kid, I would write like horrible confessional poetry when I just felt overwhelmed. It was kind of like my thing that I did to process my emotions as a child. And then I went to school and I was like, I'm going to be a nurse because everyone wants me to be a nurse. And I went and it just wasn't for me. I just didn't feel like I fit. And then in a roundabout way, I was like, oh, there's this intro to creative writing, fiction writing. I need an elective, sure. Yeah. And so I ended up taking it and was horrified because like in a traditional workshop setting, right, like you turn in your story and you have to sit for 30 minutes and everyone in the workshop says what's wrong with it, what's working and all that. And like, I was like, what?
And they've read it or you're reading it?
They've read it before. Yeah. And they bring their notes and they comment on it. And then surprisingly, I was like, I actually really loved that.
Yeah.
So I was like racing to take intermediate fiction. And then I was like, I'm going to switch my major to this. And so I did. And then I got into grad school and did my master's through BSU, which is a master's of fine arts in fiction. And was like, man, I don't know what I'm going to do now. But then a job at the Cabin opened up. And I had always known about the Cabin because a lot of people in the MFA program teach for the Cabin. They're teaching writers, so they would teach a workshop like this. But I was a mom, and so I didn't really have the time to do that. I needed full-time work. And so this position opened, and I was like, it's kind of a long shot, but I got it. Yeah. And so, so now I like run summer writing camps for kids through the summer. And we do a program called WITS where we put a writer in a public school or juvenile detention center. And then we do adult writing workshops, which is kind of what I'm here to talk about today. But,
yeah. How do the kids compare to the adults?
They're actually pretty similar.
Yeah, that's not surprising, I guess. Yeah.
I feel we were kind of talking about this earlier, but like there is just this pressure. And even from a young age, like people and kids feel pressured about writing. Yeah. And we get some kids who come to summer camp who are like, I hate writing. They'll declare that on Monday and you're like, oh man,
this will
be
a fun time.
What are you
you're
doing
gonna have
here?
so much fun. Yeah.
And most of the kids are there because they love writing. But we do get some who are there because their parents want them to do better at writing. But then a lot of times by Thursday, they're like, I love haikus. And their parents will be like, they sat in the hammock and wrote haikus for 45 minutes. And I'm just like,
amazing.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
like I love that so much. But I see the same with adults. Like there is just this apprehension to write and to share and to be vulnerable. So it's kind of similar between the two.
Yeah, I think that's what before we started rolling, we were talking about how it is that level of vulnerability in like a lot of different ways. Because one, you're putting out your innermost thoughts in some ways, or even if they're not, they're a reflection of the way that you think, even if it's something less serious that maybe you're writing. And especially when most people's exposure to writing happens in school, when you're doing either structured, if it's in English, or if you're writing an argumentative essay or something like that. And there is this pressure where it's almost tied to your ability, right? And like you will get a grade, like you will be told how good you are at whatever it is that you produced. And most people stop writing because they didn't enjoy that, I think, in school, or maybe they just don't have the time or it never even occurred to them. But there's this liberating thing that happens when you are no longer bound by really like any of those rules or the idea of getting a grade or like this experience people have had. I mean, you were mentioning earlier, like punctuation rules, and it can all like just go out the window.
Yeah.
And it's just a really, it's something I fear that a lot of people don't experience because I've found personally that it's an amazing way to take everything you write, regardless of if it's fiction or nonfiction. I mean, it's going to be, it's you, right? It's your experiences are informing what you're putting to paper. And so what it ends up being, at least for me, it has been, is a way to process and repackage and organize things that have either happened to you or articulate things that you hadn't really found a way to do it before. And the nice thing about writing is even if you don't ever want to publish it or show it to anyone, you can just do that.
Yeah.
And it's just a really healthy, I don't know, I found it to be a really healthy exercise. I mean, you've watched a lot of people go through or start or be at different points kind of in this writing experience. And I mean, has anything stood out to you, I guess, as far as like what people gain from it or what they might not have expected or why, we have people who I hope they're considering this and maybe they're not. And like, what would you say to them as to what they might be able to get out of trying to be more involved with writing?
Yeah. I mean, I think, and you kind of touched on this, but like writing is self-discovery. Like writing is taking something that you've experienced, whether you fictionalize it or not, it stems from something that you've seen in someone or you've experienced yourself. And it can be as little as like, oh, I was at a coffee shop and I heard this person say something that was interesting to me. And then you take that and run with it, right?
Yeah.
Or it could be like, this happened to me and I want to explore this and share this exact experience. And I think it's so great because, like you mentioned, you have autonomy over what happens with it. Like so many times in our life, we don't have control over what someone sees, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, or our voice. And this is the opportunity where you could say, I can write whatever I want on this piece of paper and I can decide if someone sees it or not. And that doesn't happen a lot in our lives, like we're obligated for so many other things. And like, this is just such a natural opportunity to do that and decide where you want to take it. And that's pretty powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's been my experience at least. It's just, it's amazing to get to take kind of like the only other place that happens in your life is in your own thoughts when you don't put them to paper. And then the shame of it is, I think so. I have 3 kids. They're young. They're 5, 4, and 10 months right now. And I think a lot about writing from a legacy perspective in that there's a lot of value in leaving behind, like even if it's a fiction piece, it gives your family something to grab onto and look back at and think, oh, this was this person. You can learn a lot about them. When we lost my dad when I was younger, he didn't do any of that. And so you're kind of left with these boxes of tax returns and, the administrivia of life, which is not an accurate reflection of like who you are. And so I think there's a massive, and with our audience too, the stories they can tell. We have post 9/11 veterans are the preponderance of our members and their spouses and their families. And there's just so much of that goes untold, and it kind of breaks my heart when you think about it, right? Like all of these individual lived like amazing lives that I'm hoping are getting expressed in a way that is not, it is kind of beyond that. Anyways, that's just the thing that came first to mind. But have you seen when folks start their kind of writing journey, is there a propensity to lean on like fiction versus nonfiction, or like what do you see? Is there an archetype of people who like, I'm going to start writing and then I get really frustrated and then I quit and then I come back to, you know what I mean? Like, what does it normally look like for somebody? Like if somebody's out there trying it?
Yeah. I mean, there's not like one type, like I've taught undergrad students mostly through college. And, like when it comes to fiction versus creative nonfiction or nonfiction, I see a lot of people take comfort in writing through a fiction lens, right? Because, and I don't know if that's because they feel safer about it. They're like, okay, this is something that happened to me, but I don't want to say that it happened to me, which it's a beautiful like avenue to do that if that's what you're comfortable with. But then I've also seen the opposite where, someone will take a fiction course and I'll give them craft advice and they're like, but that would change how it actually happened, and it's like, okay, well, you have to decide what's important to you. Is it important to you that you have the liberty to fictionalize something and make it a narrative and just run with it and go with your gut about the story, right?
Yeah.
Or is it important to you that you get down your own story, right? And I think that is something that's good to decide at some point along your writing journey, because you don't want to be like asking for advice on fiction if it's not fiction, right?
Right.
And a narrative has to be a narrative, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. It still has to fit within the bounds of a story. And there are ways to do that differ between nonfiction and fiction.
Yeah.
But I always actually tell people to just not worry about genre,
that's
especially when you're going into writing just as like ripping off the Band-Aid. You're trying it out. Like, don't worry about genre. Just like don't worry about spelling. Don't worry about punctuation. Just go with your gut. If you're writing a scene or a line of dialogue and you're like, but I want them to say this and that's not actually what happened, then do it. Because really, fiction and nonfiction have the power to tell inspiring stories, and they have the power to connect people, whether it really happened or not. It stemmed from something that did happen.
Yeah.
And so I just am always like, don't even think about genre.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe this resonates with you, but sometimes when I'm writing, you'll know that it's going well when you are where the words are just, I'm typing obviously, when they're just like flowing onto the screen, and you're like, I'll go back and clean it up later, but like it feels like and then when I stop, it's at those moments where you have that pause of like, well, is this something that actually happened, or is this, now I'm not so certain, right? Like now I'm like, do I want to take, and maybe that's me trying to make that decision that you're talking about. I've never really thought it that way before.
Yeah. And like what you're saying essentially is like, drafting and revising are two separate processes, and they should be two separate processes. Like when you are drafting and you are writing, just let it flow. Don't stop yourself from putting those words down. It's when you go back to revise that you think about those things, right? And that's what we always recommend. Like, they are separate processes, and they should be, because if you're worried about those things when you're writing, you're just limiting yourself and you're stopping yourself from that momentum. And when you start writing more, that momentum can come less and less. So it's like when you feel it, go with it.
Just go with it. Just
exactly.
run with it. Yeah. And I think that is kind of a nice, I imagine that is a good way for folks who are getting into it. The idea is always right, like just start, right? Like that's kind of the advice I've heard in the past, right? It's just start. And we at Mission43, and a lot of the work we do is really focused on a lot of like post-traumatic growth, right? Like we're trying to help people leverage their experiences and grow from them. And we believe Idaho is a one-of-a-kind place in so many ways to get to do that. Do you have any success stories or examples that you might be willing to share when you've seen people have like a really great return on writing as a vehicle for growth or something like that, as our members are thinking about maybe doing and getting involved with this a little bit more? Yeah,
this is something that always comes to mind when I'm asked something similar. But we're in juvenile detention centers, right? And I was observing, because part of my job is observing the teachers to make sure, that things are going well. And she was doing this prompt with these kids who are given a pencil at the start of the lesson, and they have to give the pencil back. They're pretty limited on what they're allowed to do.
Yeah.
And she brought in this poem that was basically a list of small things, but there was a huge emotional weight to them, right? And she asked them, okay, I want you to think about small things in your life that have had a huge impact. And one student raised their hand and was like, the ability to hold a pencil. And I just was like, wow, this is one of those moments that is so rare, where you just directly see the impact that this student is able to write what they're feeling.
Yeah.
And then, of course, listening to that student read their work is amazing. Like, they're listening to those stories that come out of those juvenile detention centers is like one of the reasons I do this job.
Yeah.
It's just, you see them processing their emotions and hard things that they don't have an outlet for anywhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. That's incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can see why that might be one of the best parts of your job is getting to do that. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I imagine that even that small exercise with that poem is the rate of return on that, just pausing yourself. And I think that's something else about writing too, is like, you have to know, I don't talk to anyone who's like, I wish I was on my cell phone more. Or like, I wish the last thing I was doing before I went to bed at night was like scrolling on my cell phone.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about writing is that it's super cheap. I mean, you can go to Albertsons and get a notebook and a pen for like $2.80 or something, or you can get some scratch paper. It doesn't matter. And I think that has, using it as a way to change some of your habits and lifestyle stuff too, is because that's a lot of the work we do with Mission 43 as well, right? Like we're helping people improve, wellness outcomes, achieve fitness goals they've never thought about before, enrich their family, hopefully in ways that they find valuable. And a lot of that is like habit formation and habit changing. Do you guys do any work around journaling or like helping people get into that process, or is that kind of something that comes out organically as people become more interested in writing, or
We've done workshops specifically on journaling for mental wellness.
Okay.
And so that's something that we have done, but I think a lot of time it comes out organically. I feel like journaling is the thing people know that they should be doing for their mental health. But it's exactly what you're saying. It's just about actually doing it. And I think that there is a hurdle. Like one thing I hear a lot is, well, I go to journal, but I don't know what to write. And it's like, you can write whatever you want. Whatever comes to your mind.
Yeah.
And, like getting in the practice of doing it feels daunting. Like, I'm sure it's the same as like when you're saying, okay, I want to run a marathon, right? You don't just like run a marathon the first day. You break it up, right? You do small steps to build up to that. And it's the same thing I recommend for people who want to get into journaling. It's like 1 sentence per day. Write something you saw, write something you felt. It can be as simple as you want it to be, or it can be, you can keep going with it.
Yeah.
And then you'll start to feel more comfortable with that. And then you can build it as you get in the habit and more comfortable. Like habits should work around us, right? Like if you're having to change your whole life to be able to write, I don't know that I would recommend that. You can make it fit for you. You can pull up your phone, which we all have phones, and use your notes app. You can do it on your lunch break. You can do it while you're waiting in the car to get your kids from school. 1 sentence is achievable.
It's so funny too, because I think that is like the perennial issue people have with journaling is like they open that page and they're sitting there and they're like, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to put in here. Right. I was at my wife's grandparents' house for a holiday like last year, and on their bookshelf, I was just kind of thumbing through, looking at, holidays can be a lot. Maybe I'm just looking through something to read. Who knows? And I kind of came upon one of her grandfather's relatives had a journal that somehow he ended up with, and it was on this bookshelf, and I opened it to the first page. And it's funny because I feel like the first page of everyone's first journal ever kind of ends up being the same thing, which is, well, I have this new pen. She literally wrote, this is probably like 60 years ago, like, oh, I have this new pen. It's kind of fun to write with. And like, here's what I did today. And like, blah, blah, blah. And it was just so endearing to me to see like, this is always the way it starts. Right? Like it's just getting comfortable with the idea that this is something that you want to do. And then I've read, a few more pages and suddenly she's digesting parts of her life.
And that's the thing is I feel like you have to get through the awkward, like, oh, I'm writing in a journal. Like this is kind of weird. Like, and just like do that. Like let that first page be that. And then really you just get into what you actually want to talk about or write about, right? That always happens. And that stuff too becomes the fodder for what you can go and turn into a longer form piece. And I mean, we haven't really talked about, but there are 1,000 different ways to structure. You could write poetry, you could write haikus, you could write, or you can go and write a 10,000 word essay. Like there's just a million ways you can do it, but the fodder that it does exist in by thumbing back through those one sentences that you've been able to write down over the years, they turn into something, right? Like they have so much inherent value. Who knows? Like one of them might be the start of like your great American novel or something like that, right? Absolutely.
Anyway, that's what I tell myself when I'm journaling, and then I'll go back and look, and it's mainly like, the kids went to bed late again last night. You know what I mean? But that's life. They'll like to read about it someday, I guess. Well, I wasn't really planning on doing this. Because I had sent you something that I'd written, but I think that you had a chance to read it, and so the nexus of this podcast, right, is we're really excited to offer in this coming year a writing cohort at the Idaho Outdoor Fieldhouse. So this will be a cohort that brings challenged athletes, foundation athletes, and Mission43 members together, veterans and military spouses, through a coached and taught partnership with the cabin here in Boise, where folks will go through the workshop and they'll get feedback on pieces and learn about different ways to structure their writing. We're excited about what could come out of that. Next year is the 25th anniversary of 9/11. So with our audiences, we're hopeful that they might take a chance to reflect on some of those memories and stuff like that, but they don't have to. Like if anyone wants to participate and doesn't want to do that, that's not a requirement. But I'm wondering if it could be useful to, you have the piece I wrote. I didn't know you were going to bring it, and I'm nervous to do this, but because I wasn't planning on doing it, but it came to me and I'm going to do it. What can people expect, like if they were to hand you a piece like that and you have it and you're kind of looking at it from a lens of helping them improve or grow or trying to show them things you like or don't like? Is there anything that would be worth showing people what they could expect if they were going to go in the cohort and you're as someone with an MFA in creative writing or something is holding their piece? It's a little intimidating.
Yeah. It shouldn't be intimidating.
Well, I'm intimidated.
I get that it is.
Yeah.
And this is someone who has been through so many workshops. So I understand that. I'm so used to that. But first of all, good for you for putting your work out there because it's really hard. And I just commend you for that.
Well, thank you. And it was my wife mainly encouraged me to do it, so she deserves the credit. Yeah.
For people coming into this cohort, I think it's just good to know that this is about getting used to writing and putting yourself out there. Yeah. So I'm not looking at this piece thinking, oh, well, I wouldn't have done it that way, or is that the best way to do it? I'm looking at this piece and I'm saying, this is a great Flash piece, right? Like I love Flash. Flash is so accessible and a great way to write a short, concise thing.
Flash fiction being like that short, you have like a 100 or 500 to 1,000 words or something. Right, you're supposed to tell a story in that block. Yeah.
Typically, Flash is under 1,000 words. Okay. It can be fiction. It can be creative nonfiction. You mentioned that this was a fiction Flash.
Yeah.
And I think everything is just going to be so positive and encouraging. This isn't a college workshop where we're saying like, oh, I don't know about this. Yeah. And there will be times where you're pushed. It's like, okay, you have this detail, right? How can you make that more distinct?
Yeah.
Like, how can you deepen this, right? So there will be feedback along those lines for sure. Mm-hmm. But in this one, like the line that just really stopped me in my tracks was the moment when like Carrie and the husband are walking their dog and she finds camouflage behind his ear after the shower. And there's that line that says, usually behind his ear, closest to his brain. And that moment is like, that's where the good stuff is. Like, closest to his brain tells you so much about this person's experiences and what they've been through, right? And it's almost like metaphorical. There is literally camouflage behind this person's ear, but it means more than that. And you feel that. And that's what makes great writing, right? It's those small moments where you're like, oh, I feel this. I really, really feel this right now. But it's also so simple. And so I think just removing the pressure and trying not to feel intimidated.
Yeah. Well, you said stopped you in your tracks. So I was like, all right, we have to cut this off, guys. Like, this is not going to work. Like,
no, not at all. I thought this was a beautiful Flash piece, and I mean that sincerely.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
And I also have published Flash. I love Flash. But I just think people coming into this workshop is just don't worry so much about the feedback. Just you will be pushed to be better and deepen things that could be deepened and add more sensory detail or consider what this character is saying. Maybe like, is this line of dialogue really what this person would say? Right. So it's going to challenge you to kind of like think from different perspectives, which makes good writing and also allows for personal growth, I believe, to consider other perspectives. Right.
Yeah.
But just come into it with an open mind, and that would be my advice.
Yeah, I think that's that was good. So, okay, I shouldn't have been as nervous, I guess. I don't know but I think that's hopefully useful for folks to see, like, that's the kind of feedback. If you're exploring creative writing as a vehicle to grow or process a memory or something like that, it's not like someone's going to bring you in and make you read your story in front of everyone and like sit there and have this roast of you. It's more like, here's something we loved. Here's, if you want to, I think this has a lot of power behind it if you want to go further with it. And if not, like, I think that hopefully if someone's listening to this is thinking about this, like, they can see that it's really it's a positive experience, right? It's not something that needs to be intimidating. And I mean, you guys are great. I'm assuming that's how you approach all your workshops, right? But like, I think it's a big barrier for people, right? Is that intimidation factor.
Yeah. And I think that this, especially specifically, is an invitation to write, right? It's an invitation to try and work through things, or just write what you feel like writing, right? It would be different if we were doing an advanced fiction class where there was going to be a lot of craft advice, right? But this is more just to get people writing and sharing their work if they want to share their work. Like, sharing your work is powerful. Hearing the person's story next to you is powerful. It creates connection and builds community. And that's important for writers and just for people. And so that's the purpose of this to me, is just getting in there and doing it and trying and knowing that it's a safe environment and no one is going to critique you.
Right. And that your story, like, for us, right, your story, if you're participating in the cohort, or even if you're just listening to this, probably, I would imagine, right, like, your story is part of our story, like the royal we of, like, Idaho and this kind of veteran community, and, like, it's worth writing. That is the inherent value of it. Like, it doesn't matter how it comes out, or if you feel strongly about it being the greatest thing you've ever written, or if you wish it was a little bit better, the fact that you took the time to put it down and even show it to one person is valuable enough.
Absolutely.
Right. So, I mean, that's my hope. And I do want to ask too, you have spent a lot of time writing and editing and being in this space in Idaho. Is there anything about Idaho, and I mean, the geography, of course, I think lends itself to a lot of this kind of work, but what have you found about the creative writing, or even just the writing community here in Idaho, that makes it special, I guess?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot, when you're speaking like about Idaho and all the things that you can do in Idaho, it just is kind of like a natural way to have some diversity. Like, there's a lot of different things you can do in Idaho, and I think it attracts a lot of different people, right? And place in fiction or nonfiction is my favorite craft element, right? Like, you hear about setting a lot, which setting is important. Don't get me wrong. It's beautiful. It's like the name of the mountain ranges. It's the name of the store, right? The name of the street that you live on. But place specifically is like your grandma at her yard sale where she's just giving stuff away, right? It's like sitting around the campfire trying to dodge the smoke and pushing your brother in front of the campfire smoke. Place is about the place and the people in it. And I think Idaho just has this like natural cohesion in that, where like so many people are so warm and welcoming, especially in the writing community. And it's huge. Like, the writing community in Idaho surprises me so much. I consider the cabin a hub, right, of the writing community, but it's so much bigger. Like, I couldn't even get to know all the writers, and there's more and more. Like, BSU has a wonderful creative writing program, and with our summer camps, we see a lot of people from that program volunteer to help teach those. And it's just huge, and everyone just wants to learn and be a part of it. And I've never seen a situation where they weren't welcomed and encouraged. And I think that's really beautiful. So it's so warm and it's so vast. And there are so many opportunities for people to connect. It's just, you have to see it and be open to that connection.
Right.
But it's there.
I mean, I feel like between, the cabin and what is the a little bit on the background of the cabin.
Yeah.
Like, what is the story of the cabin itself, and how did it get to be what it is now? I mean, you guys have a lot. I mean, if there are any events coming up you want to mention, please feel free. There are so many. There's a regular cadence of between the workshops and then also on the visiting writer side, and then there's also the speaker series that you guys are regularly putting on.
Yeah. So I run the education programs, which I've already mentioned those, but we also have public programming, which is run by Joel Wayne. And he is the one who does readings and conversations. So we just brought Joe Lepore. We brought Jess Walter, which I know you're a fan of Jess Walter. But we also do stuff like we did literary trivia last night, which is always a hit.
Yeah.
Like it's so fun.
People love trivia.
Yeah, people love trivia. We do prizes, we give out stuff, and it's normally at like a brewery or something like that. It was at White Dog last night.
Nice.
So we do a lot of stuff, and I feel like trivia and those kind of events are nice because it's about community building, right? And then, we always bring in authors. So we do about 5 a year, and don't quote me on that because I don't run those programs. If we can fit more, sometimes we do.
Yeah.
But then there's also the Cabin Presents, which also brings in authors, but they're typically authors who aren't as well known. So it's a way of bringing in authors who are kind of more emerging. Maybe they only have one book versus 4.
Yeah.
And so we always have those. But yeah, we do. Those are kind of the big things. And we started out as like a forestry building, and I don't remember what year it was, which my director will be like, "You've heard me give that speech so many times." And
That's
I'm like,
all right.
I don't remember.
We'll edit that part out. Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's. I mean, I just think it's incredibly special. Like, as someone who was trying to explore writing in other places, having lived in different places in the military, the first advice you find online if you start Googling is to find a center in a community that is writing and get involved with workshops where people can read and give feedback and things like that. Yeah. And I mean, we have one baked in. Like, it's crazy, right? It's like you don't really have to look that far, and it's not like that everywhere.
Yeah.
And my hope is that, as we kind of grow this with Mission 43, is that we can kind of be and create that safe space too for our community of members who are interested in writing, where they can find each other and start to get that feedback. And because I think that's, writing is, there's all this, kind of, the word's escaping me, but there's this idea that it's romantic, that like you're out writing by yourself, and like but like the reality is that the magic kind of happens when you start to be vulnerable and share things and show people. Yeah. So I just think the work that the cabin does is so cool, and it was cool to come back here after a decade in the military and find that it's already like it's happening here, and the work is just amazing.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything that we didn't cover that you want to make sure that we do, that before I kind of let folks know how they can get involved and going forward? Anything you would say to anybody who's looking at maybe getting into this that we haven't covered, and why? I mean, to me it's always a little bit like golf. Like I ask older people who I used to golf before I had kids. I don't really golf anymore.
No time.
They're always like, I only wish I would have started golfing earlier, because you can do it your whole life. It's like, well, writing's kind of like that, right? Yeah. You would have wished you just started it earlier. But I don't know if you have anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can write at any time in your life. Like I actually just heard about this author. We do something called a Boise City Writer in Residence, where we put on free workshops for the public. And the person we selected for that this year worked in academia for their whole life, and they're like, I don't have time to write a novel, but at some point I'm going to, and then has put out 4 novels in their 70s.
Wow.
So it's like, it's never too late. And I think that's the great thing about creative writing is, like we mentioned earlier, it's not a performance, and it's not about punctuation and all of those things. It's just about getting into it and writing. So removing the pressure from that and doing it whenever you feel like it's right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think I really enjoyed this conversation. So thank you. Yeah, this was great. Yeah, I'm so excited about the cohort too. Thank you so much for partnering with us on that. I think it's going to be amazing. I really do. I'm looking forward to it. I'll probably participate. So you have one. You have one signed up already, so we already know it's going to be a smashing success. Well, that's that's a wrap for this episode. I would really encourage everyone to keep your eye out for the email or the event posting that's going to go out to be able to sign up for this cohort via the Fieldhouse. And if you're someone that's on the fence, or if you made it this far in the podcast, I at least know that you're thinking about this, and I'll tell you, it's worth doing, because like I said, your story is a part of what we're trying to get out there, what we're hoping to tell next year as we get to the 250th anniversary of our country's birth and the 25th anniversary of 9/11. We would love to help you tell that story with people who know a great way to help us tell it even better. Yeah. So please do sign up when you guys see it come out. And we look forward to seeing you there. Until next time, I will see you guys later. Thanks.